Okay, there's a game out there called 6 Degrees of Kevin Bacon.
I've heard of this.
Yeah, and I've never really known how it's played or what the exact rules are. I've always thought you had to do the steps exactly in 6 degrees, but I guess you can do it in 6 or less. Is that right?
Yeah, I think I don't think there's any hard and fast rules to 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon. I think it's just 6 is the maximum. Yeah, you can't do it in any more than that. So if you can do it in 1, if you can do it in 2, that's great.
Okay, well, that makmakes it easier. So you want to give it a try? Maybe we can give this game a try?
Sure. Thinking about doing this for the podcast, all I could think is I'm not the young man and my brain isn't what it used to be. So I'm kind of nervous if I can remember actual names of actors.
You want me to go first? You give me a name first. I'll go first. Then I'll give you a name and you'll see how we do.
Okay, let's do Michael J. Fox. Connect Kevin Bacon to Michael J. Fox.
All right, let's see. Michael J. Fox is in Back to the Future with Christopher Lloyd. Christopher Lloyd is in Addams Family with, what's her name?
Angelica Houston.
Oh, no, the other one. Oh, that's good. Angelica Houston. And she's in Royal Tenenbaums with Gene Hackman. Gene Hackman is in Crimson Tide with Denzel Washington. Denzel Washington's in Philadelphia with Tom Hanks. Tom Hanks is in Apollo 13 with Kevin Bacon. I
think maybe I lost count. I think you at least got 7 degrees of Kevin Bacon. So that worked.
Wasn't that six?
Try it again. How did you? So you did. Michael J. Fox was in with Christopher Lloyd was in. Angelica Houston was in.
Gene Hackman.
Gene Hackman was in. Crimson Tide was in with Tom. No, yeah, we're 7.
Oh,
it was
7
degrees. Okay.
Shoot. I tried.
Right. We tried. Hey, you're new to this. All right, give me an actor. Let's see if I can connect him.
All right. I was going to say Kevin Bacon, but that's too easy.
Yeah, can't connect Kevin Bacon to Kevin Bacon. That's strange. What are you doing?
All right, let's do this. Let's do Bruce Willis.
Okay. Bruce Willis was in Die Hard with Alan Rickman.
Okay.
Alan Rickman was in Harry Potter with Kenneth Branagh.
Okay.
Kenneth Branagh was in Swing Kids with Robert Sean Leonard, who was in Much Ado About Nothing with Denzel Washington, who was in Philadelphia with Tom Hanks, who was in Apollo 13.
You got it right in 6. You got it in 6.
I think I cheated though because I used yours. But anyway,
that's okay. I mean, that's how you do it. Once you realize that Kevin Bacon's in movies with Tom Cruise and Tom Hanks, you can get anybody.
Yeah, gotcha. Okay, so want to try another one?
Yeah, you know what? I can actually link myself to Kevin Bacon.
Okay, go for it. How do you do that?
Yeah, I was in a movie with Clint Howard.
Oh.
And Clint Howard was in Apollo 13 with Kevin Bacon. So I can do it in 2.
Wow, you're famous. If I had an award or something, I would give you an award.
I'd take it.
Okay, all right.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, give me one.
Okay, let's do... you know what? Let's do Keanu Reeves.
Keanu Reeves? Okay.
Reeves. I did an easy one. I think that's an easy one. Okay.
All right.
You can use somebody we've already used to connect. I think you can do it.
I might go a different route here. Let's do this. Okay. Let's do Keanu Reeves was in Matrix with Carrie-Anne Moss. Carrie-Anne Moss is in Memento with Guy Pearce. Guy Pearce is in LA Confidential with Russell Crowe. Russell Crowe is in Gladiator with Joaquin Phoenix. Joaquin Phoenix is in, I want to say The Master with Philip Seymour Hoffman. Where am I going with this?
I don't know. Rabbit hole.
I think I screwed up.
Well, if you did it, you could do Keanu Reeves was in Much Ado About Nothing with Denzel Washington, who is in.
Oh, okay.
You could.
I should have done that.
Okay. Well, let's give you another one. Let's see if we can make it easier. Let's try Harrison Ford.
Right. Let's see. Harrison Ford is in The Fugitive with Tommy Lee Jones. Tommy Lee Jones is in Batman with Val Kilmer. Val Kilmer is in Willow with Kevin Pollak. Kevin Pollak's in If You Could Marry Kevin Bacon.
There you go. All right, you got it. Okay, give me one more. Let's try this.
All right, one more time. This is
it.
All right, let's see if I can give you a hard one. Let's do what's his name? Let's do.
That's not going to help me. That's not going to help me if you just do what's his name.
Okay. Let's do. man, I had his name and I can't think of it. It's the Christopher Walken. I don't know why I can't think of that. Christopher Walken.
Christopher Walken. Okay. Christopher Walken is in. Oh my gosh, what is Christopher Walken in? Christopher Walken is in Catch Me If You Can with Tom Hanks, who's in Apollo 13 with Kevin Bacon.
That was way too easy. So you're not as bad as you thought. You're pretty good at this game.
Well, how about we try, let's try 1 degree of Kevin Bacon.
All right.
Let's see if you can name a movie that Kevin Bacon. Okay, so here we go. Let me give you the actor. Jason Patric.
Jason Patric is in Sleepers with Kevin Bacon.
Perfect. There you go. Nice one. Okay, give me one. Give me a 1 degree. I bet I can get this.
All right. Robert De Niro.
Sleepers.
Oh, yeah. That's right.
All right. I don't think we're being like as hard as we need to be on each other.
Well, who cares?
Okay. All right. And welcome back to NostalgiaCast. I'm Darin Lundberg.
And I'm Johnny Craddock.
And today we will be covering the 1984 musical drama. Is that how you describe Footloose? Is that how you'd categorize it?
Yeah, I guess you can call it that, yeah.
Okay, 1984 musical drama Footloose, starring Kevin Bacon, John Lithgow, directed by Herbert Ross. But before we talk about that, let's talk about our last episode. Last episode, we talked 1993's Swing Kids. Yep. And we had a special guest on. We had your wife, author R.J. Craddock. How did we come down on Swing Kids?
Well, I know she liked that movie a lot. It was something she grew up with, and the dancing was personal to her. And her and I bonded over that movie while we were dating. So it's a movie that she thought was worth remembering. I kind of came down very similar. I liked the music. I liked the dancing. I didn't like all the Nazi propaganda. That part was kind of, I wanted to get past that as soon as possible. So I was kind of torn because I could see your point, what you were making, but I ultimately said that it was worth remembering.
Okay. And I think I came down worth the remake just because I liked what it was trying to say, but the movie was very dry in how it was saying it. It felt like a carbon copy felt like Dead Poet Society, kind of transposed into Nazi Germany. And so even though I thought it was respectable, I thought maybe they could have done it in a foreign language so he wouldn't have been distracted by the weird full-on American accents. And
I could see that, and I think that would be more effective. So
okay. All right. So obviously there.
And hey, because we're doing Footloose, and we're going to be talking about Kevin Bacon, I was worried that all this talk about Kevin Bacon was going to make me hungry. So I went ahead and made a plate of bacon. So can you see that? I made a plate of bacon for me to munch on while we talked about Kevin Bacon.
Okay.
So if you see me munching on it, don't mind me. It's just all the bacon talk's making me hungry.
It's just you knocking a year of your life off every time you take a bite.
Exactly.
I shouldn't be worried about that.
I'd offer you some, but I'm in New York and you're in Utah, so it's not going to work out very well.
Okay. I think it'd be really just dried out and all crumbly by the time you mailed it to me. Okay. I don't know if I've told you the story. When I would come home from school in junior high school, and I think in high school, I would make myself an entire pound of bacon.
Really?
And I would eat the entire pound of bacon. My mom...
I knew you liked bacon.
Yeah. She would always say, "Are you trying to kill yourself?" And now I can only eat 2 or 3 pieces and I get sick.
Oh, really?
So I don't know how I ate an entire pound. That's just... I'm not going to live till I'm 60.
That's pretty impressive, though.
Yeah. So you enjoyed that bacon. And before we talk about Kevin Bacon in Footloose, let's check out the trailer.
All right.
He's the new kid in town, and the music's on his side.
Let's dance!
Footloose.
Cut loose, footloose. Kick up some shoes. Please, Louise, pull me up on my knees. Jack, get back. Come on, before we crack. Loose, you're loose. Everybody come loose.
Paramount Pictures presents Footloose.
Okay, Footloose, 1984. Sorry about that trailer for our audio listeners. I guess it's just listening to Kenny Loggins' Footloose. Man, trailers were strange.
Yeah, but you know what? I miss the trailers with the trailer voice, the voiceover guy. Like, I miss that. We don't do it much anymore, and I really long for that. The one man, one journey, whatever. I like that.
In a world, yeah, that kind of
right.
Right. So anyway, that was the trailer for Footloose. Big hit, this movie. I think about $80 million. It wasn't like like Return of the Jedi numbers or anything like that, but 80 million is pretty respectable. I think it made the top 10 of its year. My experience with the movie, I remember vividly, and again, watching the movie now, I don't remember my reaction to the actual movie. I do remember vividly watching it with my mom and seeing the way, and we talked about this before, seeing the way that she laughed and react to a bunch of stuff. The conversation between Willard and Ren about, men at work and the police, and, oh, have you seen the police? Oh yeah, they're right behind us. I remember her laughing hysterically at that. And so again, it's one of those things where, well, that was funny. So I don't really know who the police are. I was like, 6, 7 years old when the movie came out. So, but since she thought it was funny, I thought it was funny. And then, obviously, the dancing and stuff like that, that's something that, psychologically it kind of gets to you. So as far as, and then it's one of those movies where, the soundtrack was really huge, and it's been a staple, a listening staple. I remember my mom making audio tapes of Footloose, and to be able to fit like on both sides, she would repeat some songs, but she didn't mind because Footloose was one of my favorite songs growing up. But yeah, I mean, growing up with it, it's always just been there as a staple of my childhood. Just, Footloose. Oh, I know exactly what that is. I remember specific dance numbers and specific musical beats. What was your experience with Footloose?
Okay. Like you, I was really young when I saw it. I saw it with my family. And now I don't remember really liking it when I first saw it. I remember liking the song. The Footloose song was something that I would listen to with my brother. We would stay up late at night and listen to these top 5, top 10 countdowns on the radio. And they would play songs like, Van Halen Jump, and they would play, Footloose, and they play Michael Jackson's Thriller, and all those songs that were big back then. And I remember Footloose coming on and really, really enjoying this song. So when I saw the movie, I liked the parts when they played the song. So I liked the title sequence. I liked the part in the country dance bar, and I liked the end dance sequence because they had the song that I liked that was playing. And I've only seen this movie maybe 2 or 3 times. That's it. Even counting this time watching it now, I haven't seen it very much. I am familiar with all the different scenes and all the different, moments, the, iconic moments, but I can't say that I would ever put this movie in on purpose. I would never go, oh, let's watch Footloose. I would never say that. Even though, like I say, the song is good and some of the dance sequences are kind of fun, I would never put this movie in just because. You know what I mean? So I didn't see it very much over the years. I just it was like you. It was there. I knew it was there, but I didn't really go out of my way to watch it.
Okay. And so this was what, your third time seeing it?
Third or fourth, yeah.
Third or fourth. Well, it's one of those, like you said, my experience watching it, I don't think I'd watched it in full for quite a bit. So when you would see, one of the things that my wife likes to make fun of me for is, even though I own the movie, back there, it's, if it comes on Netflix, or because we watched it on Amazon Prime, if I see it, I will, oh sweet, I'll just press a button instead of going back and actually popping the DVD.
Yeah.
But even though I hadn't seen it in full, the dance sequence at the end, which is what I remember the most, that just, if the mood struck me, if I saw it, I would just put on the ending, the last 5-10 minutes, just to hear the song and just to kind of get caught up in the, the mood of that ending, which, it sends you out of the theater kind of on a high. So again, it's just a weird experience watching, the movie for, in full, as opposed to just watching it in pieces. So that was a different experience. So
I did the exact same thing you did. When I watched the movie, I watched it on Amazon Prime, and then we have the double DVD set with the remake too. And so I said, I should watch the remake just to see how it compares, And so I was going to watch it, and my wife was like, let's pop it in. And I was like, let's see if it's Amazon Prime. So like I found it on Amazon. Oh, there it is. And she was like, just put it in. We have the actual copy. And I'm like, well, it's right there. I can just push this little button and it'll start playing. So anyway, so I had the same exact experience you had.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I guess, the topics that, something that makes Footloose, and we'll get into the movie obviously a little bit deeper, and the remake. I kind of want to talk about the remake a little bit, but our claim to fame with Footloose is it was filmed around here. I drive past the Lehigh roller mills, on a daily basis. And so it's funny watching the movie, and, it looks exactly the same. Like they hadn't changed it. I wonder if there's just no need to update it because it's just classic, or because, oh, that's from Footloose and people won't recognize it. So
well, like you, I know that spot, like the back of my hand. I drive past that Lehigh roller mills all the time. I know right where that road is. I know right where the high school is. I've been in the high school. I've walked those halls. So I'm like, hey, I've been there. I've done that. So it's kind of fun to watch the movie and see the, the landscaping, the mountains in the background. Makes me kind of homesick, but
well, it would do that. All you see is buildings, skyscrapers, things like that.
No, we're in the upstate, so we see trees. I see trees everywhere.
Okay, all right. So not exactly Utah. Yeah, it's funny. They filmed Kevin Bacon. The story is that he was young enough that he was able to masquerade as a teenager, and he walked around the halls of Payson High School.
Yeah, what was he, like 26?
Something like that. And the way that he wore his tie and the way he wore his hair, the funny story is that he had the same experience. Like everybody was just staring at him like he was an alien. And I think he only lasted maybe a few hours. But yeah, they shot that in Payson. I think the tractor scenes they shot in Payson, the church scenes they shot in American Fork, the steel mill scene where he dances to Never. That is the Geneva steel mill. And so, it's fun watching and picking all these little spots and seeing how they're different. Where they shot the dancing in the sheet scene where they go to the diner or whatever, it's an auto parts store now that I drive past in Provo. So I don't know. It's just fun seeing all that. Did you have any recall watching it this time?
Yeah. In fact, it's kind of fun to watch it again and to realize that place, that part of the city in Lehigh has been totally developed now. Like it's not at all what it was. I mean, you still have some of the fields and things, but Saratoga Springs, Eagle Mountain, Lehigh's, this like new Silicon Valley type place now. So everything has changed, even though that roller mill is still there.
Yeah. So I guess it's funny shooting it in Utah and having it be, kind of religious a little bit. Do you think there's a bit of a stigma that gets, because they're not Mormon? It's not like, it's obviously a religious movie, and the Reverend Shaw, but do you think people, or have you heard of people confusing it with Mormonism and LDS members?
I've never heard of that. And the thing is, I think that they were trying to kind of pass it off as a place in the South somewhere, because this actually happened. There really was a city, I'm thinking like Arkansas, something like that, somewhere in the South. They actually did ban loud music, and they banned dancing, and it was illegal. And so I think they tried to pass it off. It's someplace down south. It's somewhere over there. So that's why it was kind of like always fun to watch this movie and see the mountains and see, oh, that's Utah. But they never come out and say, oh, this is in Utah. They just say it's Beaumont. They don't ever say what state. They don't ever say, But anyway, what was I going to say about that? John Lithgow sometimes pops into a Southern accent too. So it's kind of like, it's kind of confusing. Like, are they trying to sell the fact that they could be in the Southern state? Like, is that what's going on? Or, because they, like I say, they never really come out and say, hey, we're in Utah.
Yeah. Well, maybe it's just me. And since it is Utah and I recognize a lot of places look familiar, maybe I'm like, oh, are they trying to pass this off as Mormonism? But yeah, you mentioned that I think it was in Oklahoma City, Elmore City, where there was, they banned dancing, I think in the late 1800s. Yeah. And it wasn't until
82 or 80, 82?
In 1980, what is that, like 80, 90 years? I mean, they banned dancing. They banned, I don't know if they banned booze. They kind of like associated like dancing and drinking and women, I like the line in the movie where the Reverend is like, oh, he's talking to V. He's like, dance with boys and girls get close or dancing. It makes them sexually aroused. And she starts laughing at him. But what is that? 80, 90 years that they banned it. And there was the same thing with the, they decided, I think a small group of kids, they decided, hey, why have we been banning dancing? And I think it was the townsfolk were just sticking to their guns. Then they didn't even remember why, they kind of banned it. Okay. Yeah, it was a reverend that banned it. He was an advocate of trying to head off that kind of contact and that kind of attitude and all the young kids at the time. And so, like I said, that small group of kids decided, why are we doing this? And they fought it, and they finally said, let them dance. Like, what's the big deal? Like, as long as they're responsible. I like the line in the movie where it goes, if we don't trust our kids, how can we make them trustworthy? We need to be able to have them do that. So I don't know. I just thought that was an interesting. Watching it this time, I'm sorry, go ahead. You want to?
No, just that I know too, a lot of movies are filmed in Utah. We didn't mention this yet, but a lot of movies are filmed there. It's got a lot of great locations. So a lot of famous movies are shot there. Yeah. I've mentioned before, I used to work in film. I worked for about 3 years on films in Utah, but a lot of the ones that were shot there are like Dumb and Dumber, Mission Impossible 2, that opening sequence is there. Mm-hmm. Independence Day, when he comes to the aliens come to Earth.
That's the Salt Flats, right? Where Will Smith is dragging.
That's a big location for a lot of people. Whenever they need that big, dry, open landscape, they come to Utah for the Salt Flats. Yeah. So, like I say, it's a great place to make movies.
Yeah, and the taxes, something like that. We get a lot of
great tax incentives. Yeah,
we get a lot of business. Again, watching the movie this time, if we want to kind of dive into it, obviously we have that nostalgia for it being filmed around here. It was weird watching it this time. I don't really think of it as a narrative film. Like it didn't tell a straightforward story. It felt like you said, when you watch the movie and you grow up and you haven't watched it, you remember those songs. I mean, listening to the soundtrack again, I think almost every one of those songs is listenable. I didn't skip any of them. I liked, the Kenny Loggins, obviously, the Denise Williams, the Shalimar, is that what their name is called?
Yeah.
Using Dance in the Sheets. Sammy Hagar's in there. It's very, the music stands out. And it just seemed to me that the movie was more of a string of songs. So it's kind of like just a string of music videos is all that it was. You had obviously the scene of the diner where they're just dancing to the music. You have the part where Ren dances to Never and he's running around the Steelman and you just got to dance. You have the Let's Hear It for the Boy sequence. You can take all these montages and they're basically music videos. I think that is the big pull. I don't know what do you think is the pull of this movie? Why do you think it was popular back in 84? Why did it strike a chord?
Well, I think it's the song. Like for me, it was the song. It was the song Footloose. But I do see what you're saying about like all these songs, being in there. And it probably could be like, we're just trying to sell these artists, and their albums and everything and get them out there. And hearing you mention all those names of the artists and all their songs and everything, I recognize the songs, but I never knew who sang them. So I made sure to watch the end credits to see who actually performed the songs. But the only song I recognized while watching the movie was Quiet Riot's, Bang Your Head. That was the only one that's like, hey, that's Quiet Riot.
Yeah.
But yeah, I do see what you're saying about the songs being like, up front and center.
Right. And kind of watching it, thinking about musicals and things like that. Obviously, musicals back in the day were huge. It was a giant genre that, people went to go see. They flocked to go see. But looking at it, the last big musicals before this, I think it was maybe Grease in 78. You had Cabaret. You had
Chorus Line,
stuff like that. That were, those are the big musicals. And it kind of went like the Western. It went the way of the dodo. They kind of became extinct. And it's interesting because Footloose is not a one-off. You had movies like, what did I write down? You had, Top Gun was one, Dirty Dancing, Flashdance, Fame, which Dean Pitchford, who wrote all the songs, and we'll talk about that, all the songs for this movie, that's what he was famous for. Eddie and the Cruisers was another one. Prince's Purple Rain. We've talked about Prince before. Streets of Fire, Beat Street, Absolute Beginners. You had a whole string of these musical genres that had these montages. I would even put like Rocky IV, or as I call it, Montage the Movie. It's just a bunch of montages or training montages scored to songs. Yeah. And I think, I don't know if you would agree with that. I think these musical dramas or jukebox dramas, they kind of took the place of the classic Hollywood musical. What do you think?
Yeah, I can see that, because you really didn't see musicals come back until what, Moulin Rouge in Chicago? Is that kind of what brought it all back?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I can see that.
Right. And then, you know, it's the songs that was the attraction for a lot of things. I think too, it's, you know, even though it's kind of silly, you know, Ren's just got to dance. And so he just takes his VW Beagle and he's just rocking out, you know, all by himself, just running all around the steel mill, just because he's trying to get his frustrations out. I think that's one of the major things that people really, you know, were familiar with. They empathize with that. That's something that they, you know, you feel as a teenager, you want to break free of rules. You don't want to be kind of tied down by what your parents are making you do, or what society says you should do, or what work says you should do. And so the fact that Ren is trying to fight back against that establishment to say, why can't we dance? You know, why can't we, you know, take what we're feeling inside and make it outward? You know, and that's something that people really, you know, kind of vibed with, I think. And so that's why people would go back and see the movie again and again. Yeah. But like I said, even as a 6-year-old, I think the music was really what attracted me to the movie. And I could see these characters just trying to be free with themselves. And that was an attraction.
Well, like you mentioned, the characters just needing to dance and everything, like Swing Kids did for me and my wife when we would want to, you know, go swing dancing, and that movie would kind of get us in that, you know, we want to go dance. I kind of felt similar after watching this movie. At the end of the movie, when that dance scene was over and the big party was over, I wanted to get up and start dancing, and so we did. Like the whole family stood up. We started like just kind of jiving, dancing a little bit, and I realized that I'm not very good anymore. Like I used to be a pretty good dancer, but not anymore.
It's the hips.
Yeah. But it was still fun though. It was still fun to get up and dance. So. Yeah.
And so one of the, you know, it's interesting. We've mentioned their podcast before, the Scott Weinberg and Drew McWeeny. They hosted a podcast called 80s All Over. And when they got to Footloose in February of 1984, it's interesting because they got in a very heated argument about the movie. And
oh, really?
Listening to it, you know, a couple of years ago, listening to it, you know, the first time when it debuted, Scott's stance was he just thought it was a very vapid, nothing movie, and he didn't think the dancing was great. He thought the whole thing was just to sell a soundtrack. Didn't find the movie had any soul. And Drew kind of fought back, saying, "Oh, it does have a soul." And he mentioned the book burning scene. He mentioned the scene where, you know, obviously Lithgow's character wanting to, you know, the book burning, making him realize that he maybe gone too far. And so listening to the podcast a couple of years ago, I sided with Drew, because like, that's Footloose, man. Don't pick on Footloose, you know, stuff. And I would think, you know, Scott, you know, you're kind of being like a fogey here, like just relax a little bit. You're being too uptight. But watching the movie again this past week, it's interesting because I'm siding more with Scott's point of view. I don't, it's weird watching it, and especially there's a Netflix show called The Movies That Made Us, and one of the movies that they covered was Dirty Dancing. And Dirty Dancing is funny in our household because that's one of my wife's favorite movies. It's a lot of women's favorite movies, but I kind of look down my nose at Dirty Dancing. You know, I just think nobody puts Baby in the corner, or, you know, I've had the time of my life, or Patrick Swayze singing She's Like the Wind, that kind of thing. But the Netflix documentary, it pointed something out that's very interesting. There's something going on in that movie where they go to this other town during the summer, and there's the thing with the abortion. There's a thing, you know, with obviously trying to break free of the establishment stuff. And so talking about it in that documentary, I thought it was interesting. I probably need to watch Dirty Dancing again, but I would kind of agree with that. There is more going on in a Dirty Dancing than there would be in a Flashdance, and there would be in a Footloose. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think so. I think the story's better in Dirty Dancing. The characters are more well developed. And I was going to mention this because watching this movie this time, all the scenes where they tried to have this emotional impact, and they tried to like have these, you know, somber moments with Shaw and his wife in bed, or, you know, Ren and his mom when he's talking about, you know, when they're having these like deep emotional moments, it was like I couldn't feel anything. Like I was just like, it's not working on me. Like I want to just go back to the songs, go back to what this movie's all about. It's not, for me, it wasn't about the, you know, because I didn't know the characters. I didn't know them very well. They didn't let me get to know them very well. And I didn't have that connection with them. So there was no emotional impact for me. And so I would just tune out, and I would zone out and just sit through it and wait for the parts that I wanted to see again.
Yeah.
In fact, when we watched the remake, I would just fast forward to the dancing scenes. That's all I wanted to say, make sure they, you know, were similar.
Right.
But anyway.
And it's weird that you think that, because I kind of think the exact same thing. Again, the music numbers still work for me, even though really, especially the Never scene where he's dancing in the still mill. That's like, why is this a 5-minute scene where we're just watching him dance? You know, it's like, and I get what they're doing. Like he's trying, like I said, he's trying to break free, but the way that it's shot, and he's doing these weird, you know, moves, like he's swinging across the chain. I was like, how are you going to get down from there? You know, stuff like, and so it is silly, and it's very music video-y. I mean, that's the music video for the movie for Footloose was the steel mill scene. It's just weird watching Footloose score to that scene instead of the Never song.
Yeah. I can't watch that scene without thinking about Hot Rod with Andy Samberg in the forest, punch dancing his rage, and then falling down the mountain. So when I see that scene in Footloose, I just start giggling because all I can do is picture Andy Samberg falling down the mountain over and over again.
Oh my gosh, yeah. I keep just saying Never. That's Moving Pictures, I think, is the band that sings that one. But like you said, the music numbers are what stand out. I know that the movie's trying to make a statement. It's like you talked about. What did I have here? I had the, the scene where, there's, you know, Ren and his mom talking about their dad. You have the scene where, and there's a couple of scenes, you know, the Reverend slaps Ariel, and then he goes to the church and he's trying to, you know, apologize and basically kind of twist it so it's more on Ariel than it is on him, trying to make amends with V. V? How did they say her name? V? Vi? Diane Wiest?
I don't remember.
Okay, one of those. Anyway, you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
But like you're talking about, there are scenes in there, those dramatic scenes seem like they're in there to be in there. It's not really organic. They're telling you, oh, we're trying to make a point here. Like, it seems like, oh, there has to be a scene with him and his mom. There has to be a scene with, you know, Ariel and Chuck fighting. Where did that come from? It was like a really brutal.
Yeah, you beat the crap out of her.
I know. Like, where did that come from? I don't know. Just so all these little. And then there are other scenes, like there's a scene where Ren's just in a classroom by himself in the dark, and he gets up and another kid comes in and tries to offer him like a joint.
Yeah.
And so it's like, oh, why was that a trap, or was it?
Yeah.
I don't know. And then all of a sudden there's a tractor fight. All of a sudden he's got to teach Willard how to dance. There's the scene where Ren goes and he talks to the Reverend, which I thought was nice. I like that they're connecting, but I'm like, it felt like the scene came in at the very end. So they didn't really talk about anything.
The scene that I did like that they put in there was when he goes to the town council and he, like, you know, quotes Ecclesiastes, and it's like, there's a time to dance. You know, I like that. I thought that was effective. Yeah,
it made its point, but again, it was kind of funny how he's all stammering, and all of a sudden, and it's really jokey. But when he needs to be heard, all of a sudden the camera is very serious, and he gets very serious, and he doesn't have any of the. And it's almost laughable in a way how serious it becomes all of a sudden.
Yeah.
And again, I get the point that it's trying to make. If you listen to Pitchford, and again, what's interesting about the movie is he took this experience, or the Oklahoma City, and he turned that to a screenplay. And for each emotional beat, he would turn, like I said, he was known for fame. He would turn to people that he was friends with. He turned to Kenny Loggins, who he'd worked with before, to help co-write a song. Sammy Hagar, he co-wrote. Michael Gore, who helped write Fame, he went to him and wrote Never. Eric Carmen wrote Almost Paradise, the love theme. Eric Carmen, I Can Dream About You, I believe that's what he sings, or you know, stuff like that. And so he went to all these people, and it's interesting watching the credits, seeing that Dean Pitchford co-wrote each of those songs as the dramatic narrative beats. But listening to him talk, it's interesting hearing him say that Ren and the Reverend have a connection because the Reverend is trying to get over the pain of losing his son, and Ren is trying to get over the pain of losing his father. And so there's a connection that they have there, but it's never really explored. Like, he says that, but then I'm like, well, that's interesting, but
it never goes anywhere.
Yeah, it never goes anywhere. It's just there as a thought, kind of like the scenes where, you know, he and Ren and his mom are talking. Or I liked when they're trying to organize a dance. You don't see any of that. He goes, I'm going to organize a dance. And then like a few scenes later, it's like, oh my gosh, did you hear about this kid trying to organize a dance? You don't see any of that. until later where Ren is at a gas station and he goes outside and I think Chuck's cronies or whatever, they take him and try to beat him up. Yeah. And I was like, shouldn't that scene have been juxtaposed earlier with the scene where the Reverend is going around town to meetings, like preaching to them and talking about his experience, and why isn't that juxtaposed?
Yeah.
I just,
that would make sense if it was.
It would. I felt like you could take all these scenes and you could just rearrange them, just put them in a blender, put them anywhere you want, different areas, and it would have the same effect.
Yeah.
Because each scene is just trying to make a specific point, but it didn't flow as a narrative. I don't know if it. And maybe this is a good time to talk about the remake. I haven't seen the remake at all.
Okay.
I haven't seen the whole thing. I did watch particular scenes just to kind of familiarize myself. I've kind of stayed away from it. Craig Brewer, I think, is the director. I've stayed away from the remake because from what it looked like a shot-for-shot, sexed up remake. And so I don't know, I just didn't bother because I had Footloose. I didn't need to see a remake of it.
Yeah.
And
like you, I mean, I only watched it and I didn't watch the whole thing, but I started watching it because I wanted to see how it compared. Because we always talk about, is it worth a remake? But when the ones who have already remade it, well, was that remake worth it? You know what I mean? Like, did they need to do that? I mean, it was worth a remake maybe, but did they need to make that movie again? And watching this, it was kind of like, no, they didn't need to, because like you say, they did, pretty much they just checked all the boxes. They made sure they got all the, the important moments in the movie, and they did a little different. They made it their own, so it was a little bit different. It wasn't quite the same, but it wasn't. I don't know. I didn't like the remake.
Well, what I noticed from the two scenes, I watched the fight scene between Willard and Ren and Chuck and his friends, and then I watched the final dance. Okay. And like I said, with the 84 version, it didn't seem like scenes flowed from one scene to the next. Like, you'll notice that when Chuck in the original shows up at the end and they're beating up Willard, Ren comes, why is Ren all of a sudden there? The last time we saw him, he was there. Like, what? There's no scene that why all of a sudden is Ren coming upstairs? Like, there's no reason for it. But in the remake, you see the Chuck character call out, Ren, I need you to come down here. And so there's at least that, but still I was like, how did he hear you? Like, you just yelled at the bottom of the stairs. And then for the dance scene, when Willard and Rusty are dancing, I noticed that it's weird that in the original, Rusty, Willard says, just watch me, all right? And he starts dancing. And that's the last time you see Rusty. You don't see a shot of Sarah Jessica Parker anymore. But in the remake, the actress that plays Rusty, they do show them dancing at the end. So they did kind of, I'm assuming that because the screenplay, which Dean Pritchford, I don't know if he helped write it with Craig Brewer or they just took the original screenplay and did some connections. It just seemed to me that at least they tried to make more narrative, some connective tissue in between scenes.
They did do that. They did kind of fix all those issues, but like they did also just kind of copy the old screenplay. So a lot of the dialogue is the exact same. And
Ren shows up. Chase Crawford, I think, shows up in his red tux, which is kind of strange if it's an update. And the other thing I noticed too with the dancing is it seemed more like they were professional dancers. One of the things that Scott Weinberg pushes against is that he was like, name me one scene where there's actual good dancing. And Drew's, and this is the part where I did agree with Drew, where Drew says it's not about how they look, it's about how they feel. Like, they're letting their emotions out. And so the scenes that I really liked, I really thought that the Let's Hear It for the Boy scene where he's teaching Willard how to dance, I thought that was very charming. I thought that was really funny. Chris Penn in this movie, it's probably his most likable role. I think he kind of had like douchebag roles, especially, Reservoir Dogs or True Romance, all this stuff. He kind of had these jerk roles, but he's a really nice, heartfelt character in this. I like that. And then as I was taking notes, when that final dance comes on, I stopped taking notes because the movie's over. This is just the part where they're dancing. And they're not spectacular dancers, but it's the feeling of it. I know Herbert Ross, who directed it. He directed Pennies from Heaven. He has dance scenes in My Blue Heaven, things like that. So he was a choreographer. And Scott was just wondering, why is there no passion to this dancing? And Drew's response was, they're kids. They're not professional dancers, which I thought was weird. In the remake, having Julianne Hough and all these they look like professional dancers. Watching the remake, the dance scene at the end, and then, I also watched, there's a line dancing scene It was the scene where they go to the bar.
Mm-hmm.
To me, the remake just seemed like a Step Up movie. You know, the Step Up films that they made?
Yes.
It felt like that. It didn't feel, there's a mood that I liked, at least in Footloose. I liked what it was trying to do. And I don't know, it wasn't glossy like the remake is. And I think that's, for the original, that's a certain charm.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And you can tell that the dancing is rehearsed and that, like you say, they are professional dancers. So, and because of that, I don't think you feel anything at the end. Like with Footloose, the original, you want to get up and start dancing. You feel something, and it's kind of like makes you want to move. When this one ended, just like an hour ago when I watched it, I had no desire to do anything. It was just kind of like, it's over, good.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's kind of how I felt.
Kind of a going through the motions.
Exactly.
I don't know how well, like I said, if I don't care about a movie, I don't bother kind of diving into its history. So I don't know how well the remake did. But I just don't, there are movies that hit at a certain time. There's your Star Warses, there's your, Dark Knights, there's your, all these movies that hit at a certain time that kind of hit the national mood or the mood of moviegoers at the time. And it just hits at that right moment where everything works and it clicks, and it's the movie that people needed at that time. I think Footloose is one of those movies, even though it does have a lot of those drawbacks. I know we talk about this all the time. Were there any filmmaking inconsistencies or mistakes that you noticed this time?
Well, first, right off from the very beginning is the opening the opening title sequence where you see the feet dancing.
Yeah.
And only 2 out of all those, feet that were dancing were in time or in rhythm with the music. Nobody else was really on, and it bugged the crap out of me because I was like, they're not even dancing to the music. They're just like stepping around. It doesn't make any sense. So in the remake, they actually made sure that the feet were actually in time and in step with the music. So that was one improvement they made in the remake. But anyway, yeah. So that was the first thing I noticed. Now, you mentioned this scene earlier about the drive-in scene where she gets out of the truck and she puts the boombox in the truck and she pushes play. And then instantly everybody around her just starts like nodding their head and tapping their feet and, and everything. And even people like in the back of the restaurant, all the way in the back, can hear this boombox out in the parking lot. And they're like swinging around dancing. It's super cheesy and it just makes you want to kind of laugh at it.
I had that note. I wrote down that tape player gets great sound. Like, how are they hearing? It's not like it's on the radio. It would have made more sense if she turned on the radio and the song was on, and then you see people in the diner like turning on, the radio. On
their radio, yeah, exactly.
And seeing people in their cars.
Yeah,
but it's literally like, how do they hear it back when they're making burgers? How are they possibly hearing that? I thought that was really funny.
And then also the girls in the bathroom. How are they seeing John Lithgow when he comes and pushes the stop button? They actually look away, like look towards him. I'm like, are they looking through the wall? Like, how do they see him from the bathroom? It made no sense to me.
Yeah, it's funny. Okay. All right. Were there any other things that you'd like that? I like that you pointed that out. That's great.
Yeah. Okay. The Footloose lyrics. I never really knew all the lyrics. There are some things that I never understood what he was saying in the song. And so we watch all of our movies with subtitles. And so we get to see what's really being said. And when they play the songs, they have like, the lyrics come up. And so when he says, Jack, get back, come on before we crack. My whole life up until now, I thought he was saying, Jack, get back. I'm on a whole wheat track. Like, that's what I thought he was saying. So I would sing that. I'm on a whole wheat track. I had no idea he was saying, come on before we crack.
What is a wheat track? What does that even mean?
I have no idea. I didn't know what they meant. I was like, what does that mean? So it was one of those things that my whole life I've gone thinking that he said, I'm on a whole wheat track. So it was kind of fun to go, oh, he's saying, come on before we crack. That makes more sense.
Well, there is a song from Officer and the Gentleman. It's Lift Us Up Where We Belong. I always thought that lyric was love, lift the subway where we belong. And so that's what I would sing as a kid. So yeah. I can't blame you for that.
Yeah. So, it was nice finally realizing what they really said.
Right. It's funny watching again, the 80s hairstyles of the giant rimmed glasses. Why is there so much Coca-Cola?
Yeah.
Anywhere they go, and it's right there in your face. So I don't, they're trying to sell music. They're trying to sell. The kind of the other thing as far as story wise, when you're trying to sell, make sure that there's dramatic stakes. There's a right way and a wrong way to do all of that. I think my biggest problem with the movie, other than it didn't flow as a narrative, it just seemed very, very, very episodic, was I never knew what the rules were. You know, they keep saying again that music is banned, but yet how are they being punished for it? How are they enforcing that rule? You know, we talked about the scene in the diner where all Lithgow does, he walks up and just turns off the tape recorder and everybody stops and they're just being chastised. Like he doesn't do anything. I think he doesn't do anything because it's his daughter that, you know, he's kind of embarrassed by it. And then I like how, you know, she's walking around not very prim and proper. She's walking around kind of to draw attention to herself, which is, again, kind of a thing that you run into with very religious families. You always have that one child that kind of rebels and goes against the rules.
Yeah, and I always kind of thought too that maybe that's how she was dealing with the loss of her brother too. Maybe she was just kind of like rebelling because of that, or didn't know how to handle it. Yeah,
but again, that's never really covered. We know that and it comes out gradually that her brother was the one that's killed, and they talk about it, but it doesn't. Yeah. Like you said, I didn't feel any of that. I know it's there, and they're trying to make sure that we know that it's there. But like I'm saying, what are the rules? Like, do people get put in jail? Are people fined? Like, there's no booze and stuff like. How are they enforcing this? Because we never see that happen. You know what I mean? And so there's even a scene where Ariel's talking with her dad and he's listening to Haydn, I think. And she goes, you know, this music is okay. And he goes, yes, because it's uplifting. And it's like, well, so she doesn't even know the rules. She doesn't know what kind of how long ago did they instigate this rule that even she's not familiar? Do you know what I mean? Did that of
right?
What did you think about that?
Well, yeah, she definitely should know what the law is and what the consequences are for breaking the law. And I think we should have seen more of that. We should have seen some kids, you know, get arrested or get in trouble or get fined or something. You know, something should have happened for whenever they did break the rules.
Something. There was nothing. They just kept repeating again and again that, oh, dancing is banned. Oh, music is banned. And yet everybody's listening to music. Everybody gets caught dancing, you know, but there's never any penalties for it. And so I was never drawn in. There was no dramatic stakes. In the movie. I guess being shamed in public is all you really are you know, looking forward to. And then like I said, there were some truths. I like the scene where Ariel confronts her dad in the church and she basically says, I'm not even a virgin. And he doesn't know how to react to that. So his only reaction is to yell at her, don't talk like that in here. You know, he doesn't know how to process it. And I do, even though I don't know if the moment was earned, when he runs out, when that scene is interrupted because his petitioner or whatever comes in and says, oh, they're burning books, and he has to run out. And it's just a little trash can that they're burning some books in. It's not like they're got a whole pile of it. It's not like Nazi Germany or anything like that. And I get what the point is, that he's gone a little bit too far, and his strict hand, his strict hand and his strict enforcing of his rules, it's kind of been pushed too far, and he realizes that. But again, that's a scene that's there because it needed to be there. I didn't really feel it personally, especially when he just stands there and you see people walking off, but they're not really walking off. They're just kind of sauntering back and forth. Like, I thought that was pretty funny. I was like, is chastising the only penalty that anybody has to face?
If that's it, then why not?
Yeah.
Why not go dance if you want to dance? You know, why not rebel a little more?
Yeah. So there was no real dramatic pull to that movie. So again, I like the music. I'm really a big story person, and so having it not flow in, I get what the scene is trying to say. Oh, I get why this is here. It just seemed like, Pam, we need to do this. Bam, like you said, there was a checklist. Did you, before we move on to any other, before our worth remake, was there anything else you wanted to say?
Just that you started talking about Ariel, and I didn't like her right away. I didn't like that she had this like death wish, that she was always doing these dangerous stunts, and she was like, you know, jump on the railroad tracks, and I was just kind of like, why does anybody want to be with this person? You know what I mean? And I didn't find her attractive, so I was like, this wouldn't draw me in at all. Like, this is the last person I'd want to spend time with. You know what I mean? So I had a hard time investing in her from the very beginning.
Yeah, she has moments. I like the scene after she gets beat up, and it's the only, I think, orchestral. I think Miles Goodman is credited with doing some score orchestral work. There's a scene where Ren listens to the music box, and it's Almost Paradise that's kind of scored as an orchestral version. So there were moments. I did like how she's dressed to get attention, but at the end I think she becomes innocent. I don't know if that's I'm trying not to be sexist or anything, but you know, she's in the prom dress or whatever. She gets the corsage and that's when Ren, I think, notices her for the first time. It's like, wow, you're beautiful, because that's her, you know, she's not trying to get attention. She's not trying to make a point. That's just who she is. I like that. I guess, you know, we haven't talked about last thing before we move on is Kevin Bacon and John Lithgow. I think they're the standouts. How do you think they did?
I thought they were fine. I think John Lithgow is probably the as far as the acting goes, he does the best job, even though he slips into a Southern accent here and there. I think he does the best. Kevin Bacon is just, I don't know. I think he was hired for his dancing ability. I don't know. I don't think he was that great, but he was fine. I mean, he was good enough.
Well, the story goes, I think he was trying to audition for Christine, for John Carpenter, and John Carpenter talked him out of the movie because he thought Footloose would be a much better gig for him, which it did. Footloose made him a star. I don't think he's like we talked about with Robert Sean Leonard. It's not Daniel Day-Lewis and Lincoln, but I think Kevin Bacon, he has an attitude, he has a presence, and he has a heartthrob quality that, you know, Ariel's attracted to it, audiences are attracted to it. I think, you know, it's not a very deep movie. It's not a very deep screenplay, but he does what he needs to do to get, you know, his point across. And so that's later on we find out.
I like Kevin Bacon. I have no problem with him.
Yeah, later on we find out he was a much better actor than we find out here.
Right. Yeah, he gets better as his career goes on.
Yeah.
I just think in this one, like Ariel, I wasn't invested with those characters. But I did like watching the dances, but I got bored in the other, you know, like I said, they're trying to pull the emotion idea. I got bored with those scenes.
Right. Okay. So if there's nothing else that we need to talk about, let's move on to our final segment here. As far as this is complicated. Watching the movie, I was totally, this is worth a remake. Like, this is not, the story isn't working for me. It's very 1980s. It's very music video-y. But especially like you said, when a movie like this has been remade and you're able to look at it and go, well, the remake didn't really work. Like, that's, they didn't do, it didn't improve. I know that, like we talked about with narrative tissue, which is an improvement, but as far as a movie making a statement and a movie hitting at that right time to you know, kind of hit its stride with audiences, to kind of, you know, make it stamp in pulp culture, I think that's important. And I think Footloose did that. It spoke to people. The soundtrack was, I think, the soundtrack was the one to knock Michael Jackson's Thriller out of the #1 spot in Billboard.
Okay.
And a lot of its songs, I know Footloose, I know Let's Hear It for the Boy went to #1. And a lot of the other songs charted. Almost every song on the soundtrack charted. And so it obviously made a dent. No movie's perfect. I really struggled with the narrative. I really struggled with it. Didn't tell a straight story and something that I could feel.
Yeah.
But as far as making a statement, I think it did its job. It's still, I recognize it for its time, and the music numbers do work dramatically, even if the rest of the movie doesn't. So I'm on the fence, but I'm more worth remembering just because it made you feel stuff. I had a lot of flashbacks to The Jazz Singer, where we talked about it's a soundtrack that made us like it, where there's no dramatic through line. Neil Diamond's character there's nothing, he never struggles, nothing. The struggles that he goes through, he puts himself through. And so it's just silly. Yeah. I kind of had the same vibes with this, but I think because I saw it at a certain time and because I still recognize that the teenager wants and needs of the movie, I think it's worth remembering.
Okay. Like you, I also kind of thought back to our Jazz Singer episode because I had similar experience where I liked all the songs. I liked hearing the music and I recognized them. But I didn't, like I said before, have an emotional connection to the characters. I didn't feel like they were developed well enough. They didn't tell the story like you mentioned as well as I wanted them to. And so for all those reasons, I would say it's worth a remake. And having watched the remake, I think the remake's worth another remake. Because it wasn't really worth making that movie. I mean, the movie needs a remake, but the way they did it, it just, like I said, they were just checking boxes. They weren't really trying to do anything but that. Like Psycho. Psycho was remade, and they did it like line for line, shot by shot, and it was terrible. You know what I mean? So it's kind of the same thing with this one. So worth a remake for me.
Okay. All right. That sounds good. So anyway, that's Footloose. If anybody listening, watching has any disagreements, if you think that everything works perfectly, let us know in the comments. Feel free to message us on Facebook or Twitter. anything
I
like
forgot
that?
I had this bacon, so I'm gonna go ahead and have a bite of bacon.
Okay. Well, you go ahead and you enjoy your bacon. We'll take a little break and we'll be back to talk about our outro topic.
All right. See ya.
Okay, so that was our conversation on Footloose. Hope we didn't unnerve or annoy anybody too much with that conversation. I did want to make a quick amends. I quoted the wrong song. Eric Carmen did not sing I Can Dream About You. He sang a song that I have on my phone called Make Me Lose Control. I like that song. That's one of the ones that he's famous for. So I did. If anybody caught that, I don't know if a lot of people are familiar with 80s music.
You're not saying Eric Cartman, are you? You're
No.
not saying Eric. Okay.
No, not South Park does not have a good voice. Anyway.
Just making sure.
So what I wanted to talk about with our outro topic, we can make this as brief as we need to, or as long as we need to. Obviously, Kenny Loggins and he's known as the king of 80s soundtracks, doing Footloose, doing I'm Free, Top Gun with Danger Zone, and Playing with the Boys on there. I know he did Meet Me Halfway for Over the Top. He was just your go-to soundtrack guy. And so like we talked about, the soundtrack to Footloose was very prominent in my life. And so I kind of wanted to talk maybe our top 3 or our top favorite 80s soundtrack songs. And just to give people an idea, we have covered some movies that do have very famous songs. We covered Short Circuit, which is Who's Johnny, Neverending Story, the Limahl, Neverending Story, obviously. Goonies Are Good Enough, Cyndi Lauper, Flash Gordon, Queen, obviously. UHF has some good ones. And Transformers the movie has a few good ones in there. But some of the soundtracks, just to kind of make everybody familiar with them, you had St. Elmo's Fire was a big soundtrack, the Top Gun soundtrack, like we mentioned. Lost Boys was a big soundtrack. Beverly Hills Cop, I think the Axel F theme actually made Billboard, like for an
synth. Pretty good.
For an instrumental song to make Billboard, that's great. It really struck a chord with people. And so that's, Karate Kid obviously had a big soundtrack, Breakfast Club, like we talked about. So if we were to talk our top 3 favorite soundtrack songs, what would your number 1 be? All
right, it was easy to pick my number 1 because I like this song and I like the way it makes me feel whenever I hear it, and that's "Eye of the Tiger."
Okay.
Rocky 3. So did you pick that one? Because I thought you might pick that one.
That's my number 1. I actually had
Eye of the Tiger.
Yes. I just think it's weird because it's I went to Mountain View High School. My wife went to Orem High School. And so there was supposedly a rivalry between schools that I never much paid attention to. So whenever that song comes on the radio or on, my playlist or whatever, we always joke about, oh, here's Orem High's song, when there's really no hard feelings there. It's just,
wait a minute. My wife went to Orem High too.
Oh, so that was her song. I didn't know that.
That's right.
Huh. I just imagine Ruth coming from Vegas because that's where you met her, right?
Well, she was born and raised in Utah, in Orem, Utah.
Oh, yeah, I just thought she just.
Well, no, she wasn't born there. She was born in Guam.
Guam. Okay, that's something I didn't know. All right.
Born in Guam, but raised in Orem.
Okay. Well, what is it about Eye of the Tiger? It's just, it's a very inspirational piece of music.
Yep, that's what I'd call it, inspirational for sure.
And it's one of those songs, it came from Rocky 3, but it's one of those songs that just outlasts and outqualifies, I think, the movie that it came from. So Eye of the Tiger, that's a good choice. What was your number 2?
Number 2, I picked Power of Love with Huey Lewis and the News, Back to the Future. Did you pick that one too?
That's my number 3, Power of Love. So I didn't quite pick it as my number 2, but that's funny. Yeah, that's Back to the Future is one of my favorite movies. And so that's obviously going to be a big draw for me. What is it about Power of Love that you like?
I don't know. When I was younger, we had the Huey and Lewis record and we played it all the time. I Want a New Drug, Power of Love, all those songs. And so it's just something that I remember and I grew up with. And so that's why it came to mind.
Okay. All right. Well, since you covered my number 3, my number 2, I would have to pick Ghostbusters, Ray Parker Jr. And that's a funny story that you just talked about Huey Lewis and the News, because when they were making Ghostbusters, they went to Huey Lewis to see if he could write the theme song because they liked I Want a New Drug. And then when he turned him down, for some reason, Ghostbusters has the exact same beat as I Want a New Drug. And so he took them to court, and they've never told us he won, but I think they settled out of court. It was like a plagiarism thing. But Ghostbusters is one of those movies that was very formative to me. It's one of those things that I don't think it's one of those movies we won't cover for the podcast because it weighs so heavy, unless a guest of ours picks Ghostbusters. It's not something that I would pick personally, but that song,
I can see that happening.
Yeah, I played that a lot. That soundtrack I played a lot. They even had an instrumental version of the song. And I think I mentioned in our Transformers episode that sometimes I would edit music. And so I once made like a 7 or 8 minute long track mixing the instrumental with the vocal version. So yeah, Ghostbusters is big. What was your number 3?
All right, so I mentioned it in the episode that I really like the song Footloose by Kenny Loggins, but I didn't want to pick Footloose, and I also really like Danger Zone, so I picked Danger Zone from top 10.
Okay, that's very, very formative.
I've seen Kenny Loggins in concert, and I was thrown back to when I saw him in concert and when he played Danger Zone and how the crowd went wild. It was a really fun experience, so and the reason why I picked that one. Kenny,
they call him the king of 80s soundtracks, but that's for a reason. You hear Danger Zone, you know exactly what movie that comes from. You hear Footloose, obviously it's in the title, but you know exactly where that comes from. Even Meet Me Halfway is a very good ballad. I think that works for that movie. So again, my top, I had Eye of the Tiger, I had Ghostbusters, and I had The Power of Love. What was your top 3?
Eye of the Tiger, Power of Love, Danger Zone. Now I chose honorable mentions because I wasn't sure if I wanted to if we didn't want to crisscross answers. So I want to mention these because I think they're also, mentionable. It's In Your Eyes from Peter Gabriel and Say Anything, because that was a big movie for me when I was younger.
Yeah.
And we talked about this in the episode 2, Time of Your Life, Dirty Dancing, and then Don't You Forget About Me, Breakfast Club.
Okay, perfect. I had 3 runners up as well. It's again funny. You mentioned Say Anything. The Peter Gabriel one is the one that we'll remember, but there is a song on there that's one of my all-time favorites, and it doesn't get a lot of mention. It's Keeping the Dream Alive by Freiheit. I think it's at the very end of that soundtrack.
Okay.
That's just a fantastic, I don't know, that's an earworm that gets, I enjoy singing it and enjoy listening to it. So that's an honorable mention. I liked Holiday Road by Lindsey Buckingham.
Vacation. Yeah.
Or as my kids call it, the dog song, because they have the dog that barks at the end for whatever reason. And then I don't know if I mentioned this at the top of our topic here, but The Lost Boys is another really big kind of soundtrack. And so Cry Little Sister, Gerard McMahon, that's a very good kind of ballad and very kind of an eerie kind of sinister song that fits that movie perfectly. Speaking of movies that feel like music videos, The Lost Boys is one that feels like an hour and 45-minute music video. So those are my runners up. A lot of, maybe we should do a separate podcast of NostalgiaCast for, songs during the 80s that we grew up with, and you can cover nothing but Extreme and Mr. Big songs. And Def Leppard. You can throw a Def Leppard song in there.
Yeah, exactly.
So a lot of good songs in there. So anyway, Footloose is my choice. You texted me that you were excited to tell me what our next choice was. What's our next movie going to be?
Yeah, and I don't think you're going to be too excited about it, but I'm excited about it.
Okay.
And we're coming up into March. It's going to be March Madness. I wanted to pick our first sports movie. And this was a movie that I watched a lot with my family. We were kind of athletic. My dad was an athlete. We all played baseball and basketball. So I'm going to pick Hoosiers.
Oh, okay. Hoosiers is actually, I have nothing but fond memories of it. That's Gene Hackman, right?
Yep, Gene Hackman. Yeah.
Absolutely. Hoosiers, you're right, we haven't done a sports movie, have we?
First time, yeah. First
one. Is that why you think I wouldn't like it, because I'm not into sports?
Well, maybe, because I know you're not really the athletic type, so.
Well, obviously, baseball is really big for me.
Yeah, that's right, baseball.
So yeah, I think it's just because I'm not good at basketball. I'm not good at football. It's just something that didn't come naturally, and I'm not the best baseball player, but I love playing baseball. Yeah. And the other thing too is my family doesn't like sports, so I don't really watch sports. And then my mom, she swears like a sailor when she watches sports, and that's what I do too. So why do that to everybody around me? So Hoosiers, great choice. Okay, so that'll be our next episode. But until then, I'm Darin Lundberg.
And I'm Johnny Craddock.
And we'll catch you next time, guys.